Hello, possums. It's the season for unboxing stuff, and I thought this might be a good way to talk about a few little bits and pieces that I got from Core recently. Some of them might be of interest. Some of them are pretty standard. Let's just get them out of the way right away. One thing I'm just going to knock up is a little outside temperature sensor to replace one that's fucked, like a temperature humidity kind of thing. Alex, Silent Russian, he sent me Pi Zero a while ago, and I'm just going to use that with a sensor. And this little thin USB thing here is just for power to run a zero. I just where I'm going to run it from, I need it to snake out a small hole. Boring. Anyway, this is much more interesting. So this is an AHT20 temperature humidity sensor. It's I to C. It's not very much money, and it has excellent stats compared to DHT22s and other things like that. So I'm going to give this thing a little go. I can't remember how much it is, but it's cheap. It's like less than $10 or something like that. Let's do other boring stuff. Yeah, I have another project that just needs a very compact 12-volt buck. And this little tiny thing from, how do you pronounce those guys? Pololu or something? Yeah, they make a British outfit that make all sorts of pie-related stuff. But anyway, this is just I have a great deal of confidence in their quality. And this is just a little, I think it's about good for 700 milliamps or something, but it's absolutely tiny. What else? Got myself another Pico. You can only order one at a time from Core right now. So yeah, I always just chuck another one in. I'm using it for lamps and stuff. We were talking about accelerometers, right? And there being a few different ones. I hadn't had much luck with like a ghetto one from AliExpress, and I was wondering whether to get like a real ADXL 345 from Adafruit or SparkFun, also through Core, but made by those guys. But they're actually surprisingly pricey. They're like $40 or something. This one here is an Adafruit one, and it's the 343, which is cheaper and apparently drop-in compatible. So we're going to find out. I'm going to try and run Input Shaper on this. And the other thing to note with this is, I've said this before, but 3D printers inside them is hellishly noisy. And so if you're doing something like this, you really need a shielded multi-core cable to run to it. I know some people get away with just running, like a little silicon ribbon of wires unshielded. But I've tried that onto the Pi and onto a separate microcontroller, and they've both just not worked. And it's been entirely down to noise. Like I can tell it works if I turn the speed right down. Anyway, so I wanted to do two things: get a proper board and use some shielded multi-core. So I'm going to give this a go, and I'll do that with the new Voron 2 build. What else we got? That's nothing, it's pins. So here's an interesting thing that probably everyone will like. You stick a Pi in a Voron. If it's a Pi 4, it needs a fan. I'm not going to talk much more about that. They just run hot, they just do. And one of the things I liked to use, I've used a few times in projects, is the Pi Moroni fan shim. And it's a tiny little thing that just sits on the edge of the header, and it has this tiny little fan just that sticks onto it, and it's pretty cool and they work. But Core have this one now. What is it actually called? An Argon Fan Hat. And the thing is, it's cheaper than the Pi Moroni thing. And it actually incorporates another thing which I very much like. It's not much use in a Voron, but it's usable, but it's pretty important in other Pi projects. The power button on here has a bunch of, allows you to do essentially a soft shutdown rather than just switching the power off. Because I can tell you now that the powering hard off Pis, it is possible to ruin the SD card in them. Either both like you've just corrupted it, and then you can just fix the corruption and fuck the SD cards, although I've only had that happen once. Anyway, so this the button on this has like a short press to turn it off, long press to turn it on, short press, I don't know, it says nothing, a double tap for reboot, and a long press for a forced shutdown. So no use in a Voron. One of the drawback on this is it doesn't seem to have provided any connector for the power switch. So I've had a much more expensive board than this that does much the same stuff, but it has these JSTs so that you can run that to a switch on the outside of your project. So here, I suppose I'd just have to tack wires onto the board, or maybe reach it from the bottom, but there certainly is no connector. Anyway, it's got little LEDs to show you what fan level. The default software, which is just like go and get some shit from there, yeah, just curl that in, bash it, and it installs this software. The software is going to do the temperature control for the fan. Actually, that might actually, because there's a fair bit of stuff underneath the board, so I think the temperature control might just be run from the board somehow. Oh no, that's right, it'll need to get the temperature from the Pi, because the BCM chip on a Pi has a built-in thermal, yeah, has a thermistor, so yeah. Anyway, so install software on it, and then it will, this runs auto, and depending on the Pi's temperature, and you've got soft shutdown modes, less useful for Voron, good for other projects. It didn't come with any like stackable kind of headers to brace it, but it sits on here really well. I quite like this. This is much better than the Pimeroni Shield, because that just is a friction fit, and then you've just got the header stuck above it, and I solder those on. I solder the Pimeroni Shield thing onto the pins, because you want to make sure it doesn't come loose. But here, I guess, depending on how you're mounting this into your project, you could stick nylons in here to brace it, but it sits on here okay, honestly, it's probably all right. Anyway, that was just a few random things that I got from Core. Thought I'd make a little video and join the in crowd. Woo!